Welcome, fellow film enthusiasts, to a brand new episode of The Director's Viewfinder. I'm your host, Derek Johnson, and I'm excited to take you on an extraordinary journey through the captivating world of filmmaking. As a seasoned filmmaker, producer, and director of photography, I worked on a wide range of projects, from indie gems to TV hits and a ton of commercials. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the art and craft of filmmaking, pulling back the curtain on the magic that happens behind the camera. This week, I had a chance to sit down with my friend, director and actress Debra Pralle. We'll be discussing my newest film project called Seward that she directed and I produced and shot, along with my other friend named Derek. So today I am sitting here with Debra Pralle, a professional actress of many years and also
numerous decades.
Has moved into directing in the past year or so officially.
Yes.
So Deb and I have had a chance to work on, I guess, one project.
Well, you've filmed or been on crews of projects that I've acted, but I just didn't as an actor, I can never remember who the whole crew is, and
right.
So I was like,
we've worked on a handful of productions over the years.
That weird little commercial or was it a commercial for the safety?
Those people, yeah.
Those people.
Whatever
that was.
That was definitely one of those special moments.
One of the special days.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Wow. I cashed my whopping $850 check and said, bye. And gone. Yeah.
Jeez, I wish mine was that big.
Yeah. Well, it's, 20% goes to my agent, so I didn't clear it. But yeah. So from that, then to Albuquerque.
Yeah. Oh, and then, that's right. So then I had a short in the Albuquerque Film and Music Festival. Mm-hmm. And that was where we actually... I was like...
Met again.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah.
We know each other.
And then then he did the pitch panel.
Correct. Yep.
So on film festivals, it's common that they'll have a pitch contest to pitch your projects in front of, a series of industry professionals like producers and other directors or things.
Right.
Anyhow, you won the pitch.
I did. I was the big winner.
So what was great was that was the first time I got to see you, working on this side of production.
Right.
And pitching a project. And,
right.
I'll have to say, there was a light bulb that went off, and I was like, gotta work with her.
Yeah. And I'll just, because after the pitch, you were like, wow, that was really great. And I was, kind of riding that high. And then you said, we really need to work together, which is what everybody says to each other. We should work together sometime, right? It was if they like them or if they think, and we all go, yeah, sure, great. Yeah, and they just kind of file it away. And then literally 3 weeks later, maybe 2 weeks later, you called and you said, I have a project. Do you want to help me produce it? And I said, well, yeah, I'll help you produce it, but I'd rather direct it because I'm trying to direct more. And you're like, great, you can direct it. And then it went from there. So
yeah. Which was great. I mean, it's
just rare.
It's everything, all of the worlds were in sync for a moment.
Yep.
And basically did I ever tell you how that came to be?
For Seward?
Yeah.
Kind of, but you should tell our listeners at home.
Yeah. So what happened was my friend Erin Ray, who's an actress and producer, we were at the Film Summit event last year, and she said, there's somebody I want you to meet. They know something about a documentary someone's hiring for or something. And I said, okay, well, all right, I'll meet them, but I don't really want to work on any more docs right now. I just kind of burned out on docs. So, and the person that she introduced me to was Christian Raven.
Oh, okay, the writer. Yes.
Who was our writer for Seward.
Right.
So Christian and I were talking, and she said, oh, yeah, I know someone who's does this series called Vanishing Seattle, and and they're looking for somebody to document the Highland Ice Arena, which was like a Seattle
mainstay. Yeah.
For
40?
60 years.
God.
Yeah.
And it looked like it.
Yeah, and it looked like it. Yeah, which we would soon discover.
Yeah.
Well, during that conversation, I looked at Christian and I said, I don't really know if I want to do another documentary right now. But I looked at her, I said, if you could write me a script in a couple of weeks, I will produce it and we'll make a movie there.
Right.
And I said, don't decide right now. I want you to decide in a couple of days. I'll get a hold of you. So I called her on Monday, and she said, I want to do it. What should the movie be about?
Right.
So then I gave her the idea. Basically, I told her the inspiration for the movie was a real life event that happened to me with parent bullying as a kid, and it just happened to be in hockey as well.
Right.
Because I did play hockey when I was younger. So I told that story to Christian, and I said, here's how it should start. I said, and then she came back to me a week later with this amazing script.
Right.
And I was like,
which didn't, when
amazing.
I got it, it was really, I didn't need to do a lot to it as a director. I was like, this is pretty much ready to go. Just a little bit here and there, but it was great. Yeah.
She was such a talented writer.
Yeah.
And basically, the timeline, the way it played out was we had about 2 months. In 2 months, the Highland was going to close forever.
Right.
And that's not a lot of time to put together a movie.
Yep. No.
And this particular movie, there was it was fairly dynamic project in terms of
casting,
cameras,
we knew the location, but we were under such a time crunch that it was, it was extremely challenging. And it was really challenging because you wanted me to, I know a lot of actors in town, so I thought, well, I could try to just quickly reach out and find actors that I know. You would think it wouldn't be that difficult to find a middle-aged white guy in Seattle. They're all over the place. You throw a rock and there's one. And for some reason, every guy that I reached out to, actor that I knew, was busy, had something else. A couple of them didn't want to do the script because they said it hit such a nerve for them as a kid who played sports and whose parents or a coach was really terrible to them. They were afraid that it would just kind of be too traumatic. Not that the film is super traumatic. I mean, it kind of is. There's definitely flashbacks that are pretty trauma-like, but that was the first time I had run into actors who said, you know what? I can't do this. I don't think I can do this because of that. They liked it, but they couldn't do it. So it became extreme. But anyway, once we cast it, and then we had to cast the kids, and that was challenging to find enough kids to be extras who could play hockey. And,
which is, that was a pretty, we were very aware of the subject matter because obviously it dealt with violence against children. That's like a huge and very specific way to approach that subject matter.
Right.
And that was the one piece that I think it took so much effort between you and Christian and myself to try and find a good balance that was going to give you enough of that information, but it wasn't going to crash the car.
Exactly. Because you can't you have to be very suggestive or a very small moment it carries a lot of weight when it comes to kids and abuse and stuff. So and also then again finding an actor too to play the abusive dad, who we really trusted, who could really convey that, but also be very kind and experienced. And David was great with that. So
he was like.
He was so mean and scary, even though he was just as sweet as he could be to that kid afterwards. He did great. So, yeah.
Let me ask you, what was, aside from the fact that it was an opportunity to direct something, what was it about the project that you thought, I really want to do this?
I hadn't done a drama. That was one big thing. And I played sports growing up, and I did have a shitty coach when I was playing the first couple of years I played softball. He was really mean to all of us except his daughter. And I remember thinking like, yeah, that could have been an experience. It could have, like, for you, just taken you out of sports altogether. Like, okay, this is such a bad experience. I never want to play a sport again, which is really sad. I mean, to me, that's a really tragic thing when that happens to a kid. So that part of it attracted me to it. I also wanted to do something more more action focused, with the skating. And when you said, we're going to have 2 cameras and we're going to be able to move around on the ice, I was like, oh, this is so cool. This will be a new area for me as a director. So I'm just always looking for projects where I can to push and do something different as a director and show and learn how to do that. So, and also to have 2 DPs on set, that was challenging, trying to keep track of both of you, especially when one of them is very active and kind of goes off and does his own thing. So that was to me, it was just like a really cool experience, and to tell a story of redemption too. A parent who isn't doing a great job, but manages to come around and get things right. And that, to me, as a parent, that's a great story too.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Right. The way the story resolves. Yeah. It was actually, from production wise, by the time we were able to schedule our shoot days, it's such a balance, because it's, you don't have a huge budget. So everyone got paid, but, really just...
They did?
It's like gas money.
Wait a second.
Except you and I.
I got paid in experience.
Right.
Yeah, just kidding.
Well, the check's in the mail, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
But, all of our cast and crew did get paid.
Got a little day rate.
Something. And, but, the complicated part was trying to schedule everyone. In certain scenes had to happen at a certain time.
Right.
And we had this reenactment scene with a bunch of little kids on the ice.
Right.
And that was interesting because we had no prep time for that.
Nope.
And 3 of the 4 kids in the scene, I think only one of them actually had ever skated on ice before.
So 2 things I'll tell your listeners, because I've worked with kids in almost everything I've worked on. Almost every, really, seriously, except this latest project. But you have to also, when you're auditioning kids, you have to audition the parents. So be sure that you meet the parents. Be sure that they're around, that you get a hit on how they talk with you, on how they treat their kids and stuff. I've had kids that I thought were really good actors, but their parents were really aggressive. And I was just like, no, thank you, pass. I'd rather take the other kid who's, so always audition your parents. And then if your gut, I asked the question and the callback, the kid that ended up playing our lead, I said, great. So he has experience on ice. And his mom was like, he's a really athletic kid. And I remember bells went off going, she's hedging. She's saying he's athletic, but she's not answering the question.
Right.
And sure enough, he did not. He was so awkward on the ice. I didn't know if he could stand up. And there we were, so we ended up having another kid put a helmet on and pretend, and we shot him from the back skating and from the front so we could cheat it.
Right. Yeah. We had, and then we sort of had to rethink the shots a little bit.
Yeah, we couldn't do what we wanted.
But that's where you get into like, one of the things, like people say, making a film is like going to war, and we certainly had our enough battles getting through this one.
Right. Right.
From casting to getting the kids skating, and
yeah,
and that's kind of like, why did we have two DPs? Well, one reason is because I was also the producer, so I wasn't going to be able to shoot it all myself because I had a lot of other work to do. But the other reason was Derek Klein from Olympic Studios, Seattle. One of the areas of cinematography that they specialize in over there is motion-to-motion cinematography. Yeah. So that's where the camera's moving and stabilized, and then the subject's also moving.
Right.
So that's not something that I do a lot of myself.
And I had zero experience too. So it was great to watch and learn.
Yeah. And so they actually built a whole rig that rested on hockey pucks and slid across the ice.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic.
Yeah, he he literally skated his ass off all day. Like, he was skating all over the place on his shoes, in his shoes. But yeah, so it was great. We had a lot of amazing footage. A lot of it, when we get down to trying to just tell the story, we couldn't use, but then you were able to use that in your documentary.
Right,
the
exactly.
short that you did.
Yeah.
So the footage still got used. It just got used in a different way.
Right. Well, that was the funny thing about how did we raise money for this project? Well, word got back to Vanishing Seattle because Cynthia Brothers, who's one of the main people over there.
Okay.
I've actually worked for them before. I've done a couple projects for them, so they already know. I already have a relationship with them. And how word got back to them that I was going to be doing this hockey drama at Highland. Oh. So they reached out to me and said, "Hey, we heard you're doing this movie there. Would you be interested in, shooting a couple of interviews for us and making a documentary?" And so I said, "Okay, well, I guess so." so I thought, well, we're gonna shoot the heck out of this building. So
why not?
How much effort would it be to put together a few more interviews and
put together a really lovely documentary that. Yeah, and anyway.
Yeah. So anyways, I ended up making 2 movies out of this space.
Right.
At the end of 2022.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and I think they both have merit in their ways.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about Seward.
I'm too. Now we've got it where we want it.
Yeah, and I shared the edit of the documentary with Christian yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And she got back to me and she said she was in tears by the end of it.
Oh, it's so good. And she again, Kristen was our writer on Seward, and we had footage. She's also an avid hockey player, and so we had footage of her. You went in and did some filming of just a game going on, and the whole point was that in the movie there's a game going on in one part of the ice hockey rink, and then there's a private lesson with a dad and his daughter in another part of the hockey rink. So we shot that. We really tried to combine those worlds, and we just couldn't in the editing room get it together. And she was so disappointed. She was like, "You couldn't just use that one shot?" And I was like, "Oh!" So I'm so happy that we got to use it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking to her about that too when I talked to her. And one of the things about the story that she wrote was that it's such a big story. I mean, it's just really like, it could have been much longer of a movie.
Yeah, for sure.
But the format for short films is you really gotta lock it in around 10 to 15 minutes because that's what festivals want.
Yeah,
so
it's true. And you really have to focus on one story, and because she really had 2 stories going on here. Like, on paper, it was like 2 full stories that we then had to make the Sophie's choice to take one of them down, not out, but take it way down.
And we were also trying to make the rink a character,
right?
Because, Highland was not a normal rink the way it was built. It was, and the way it was run. It basically was like a community center,
right?
Which
a family business.
Picked that up, which was great, and they were very inviting and accommodating for me to work there. but like legit, like the physical makeup of the rink is not what most of the rinks are. A little bit bigger and maybe not as cold, from what I understand, and also, because if you imagine a hockey puck hitting the board and leaving a mark.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And having that happen repeatedly,
it's just
daily for 60 years and never
change. Yeah, never fixing it as a wall of pock marks.
Yeah, you can imagine the character of this place. And do you remember going in there the first time?
Oh yeah. I just ran around going, this is cool. We need to film this rust. We need to film. And, and then when you get in there, you're like, well, also we have to tell this story. So maybe we'll have time to do that. But the other thing that is so cool about it, I think what gets people excited about it, is that it's really the story of a Zamboni driver. And so about his past and grappling with his past and stuff. So just the fact that we got to actually film the Zamboni going across the ice, there's just this magic that everybody loves the Zamboni driver. Everybody ooh, he's going to clear the ice and it's so cool. And, so that part of it too, was really fun to work with the actual Zamboni driver at the rink, who we put the jacket on him and put the hat on him so he could pretend to be our actor and actually drive it and stuff. And he was so nice. And
I mean, one of those things that, when you have a smaller budget project, you obviously can't train your actor or have him
get him insured,
get him to be able to drive a Zamboni. So, and that was definitely, they were like, okay, that's an absolute no.
Nope.
No one's driving Zamboni except our guy.
No one can even get on it. Yep.
Yeah. So that's when you get into sort of, you might call it the magic of movie making.
Absolutely.
Where
you just film it differently.
You figure out. So
yeah.
We had their guy, the guy that worked at the rink, driving the Zamboni. Yep. But we had Sherry, my wife, made the Seward jacket.
Yes.
So we had him wear that and the same hat.
And we just
shot from behind, and you'll never know the difference.
Across the way. So, totally worked. And it was funny too how he even acted a little differently once the camera was rolling. I mean, his smile was a little different. His, which is the phenomenon, right? Once the camera's rolling, everybody acts differently. And so, but he did great. Everybody did great. The kids did great. Everybody, it was overall exhausting, but it always is. And but we did it. We made it. That's what I was amazed by.
Yeah, we did it. And we had and it was great to have two DPs because we had two cameras running pretty much almost the whole time.
Right.
And the rink was going to be I so we
had to get it
shot
on Sunday.
There was going to be no pickup days or retakes.
Right.
I mean, it was either now or never. So we figured, all right, well, we're just going to shoot it. We're just going to keep those cameras rolling.
Just go.
And we did it. And we ended up some of the favorite shots that we couldn't use in Seward. I tried to put them into the documentary. It all worked out really well.
No, it was super fun. Everybody was great. It was great. What else?
So what are the takeaways? Well, let's talk about it. When your directing approach to this first,
right?
Before we go to takeaways. So I remember thinking in my head, you said, "Hey, can we go there?" And just put some skates on, and because at that point, I don't think you'd have really even ever skated.
I had been in there once when my kids were really tiny, so I didn't remember, but yeah.
So we ended up. I think we probably did about 4 visits to the location, before shoot day. And those visits were basically just you and I going there, skating, actually putting skates on, kind of absorbing the environment, getting a sense, talking, a little bit about the project and, sort of having a way to sort of really soak it up and
Right.
really feel it.
Right.
You know?
Right. It helps a ton. And then that also helps you kind of go back to the script and go, because I didn't have a lot of time with the script before, but I mean, I had read it and reread it and worked with Kristen on some stuff. And then, yeah, but to actually be in the space and go, oh, okay, which rink are we going to be in? How are we going to do this? If she comes in over this way, so then I can start blocking. So as a director, you can start thinking like, okay, if we're over here, oh, this background's really great. If we put this person here, it helps a ton, you know, to be able to be in your space. It's super, super helpful. Not the experience I had recently where I wasn't in any of the spaces before I shot. So yeah, it was kind of a luxury to, it really does help. Yeah. Was that I think that was the question.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So
yeah, well, just kind of communicating like, these are the things that are important to me, or this is how I'm seeing it. How are you seeing it? Where do you think you should put the camera? You know, it's really having a collaborative conversation with your DP as a director. That's like what I'm discovering. When you actually get to work with DPs that really know what they're doing and have ideas, you want to like use all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, certainly that's the way I work as a DP is I pretty much always have I'll read through a scene and I'll have an idea of how I want to shoot it.
Right.
So,
yeah, right. But as a director, I would assume as a DP, you don't want a director going just like, yeah, I don't know, just like, you know, let's just cover it. You know, what does that mean? I mean, yeah, a wide, over the shoulders, some close-ups, like standard or how do you feel about the scene? Do you think you need a close-up? Do you want them to come into the scene? Do you think the camera should be moving? Should it be stationary? I still think those are decisions the director should have a pretty clear idea and a rationale as to why I want to do that. You know, that's why I want, do I want it handheld here and why? Well, there's something about the scene that feels handheld versus, So I would assume you would want your director to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
good. Well, then we can work together again.
Yeah, please. No, it's like, for me, it's like, please do that.
But for me as a director too, I'm not a very technical person. I don't come into this from a technical standpoint. I've never shot anything. I've never run the camera. So I think about it from an actor standpoint and story and blocking. So you tell me technically, how do we do this, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, that's where, you know, and I'm thinking a lot of technically like, well, if we're doing this conversation coverage and say it's like 4 people on one side and 1 person on the other.
Right.
So what I might do is we might do some OTS for the 4 people. But then when we do the reverse, we would do it clean with a long lens to give you some compression and to make that feel like that person's being talked to by this group of people. Right. So, it's like, you know, those little technical things you can do to enhance the visual emotional journey that's happening in the scene.
Which we didn't have a lot of time to talk about before, but we didn't have a lot of lead time to do, but we had some. Right. So that was great.
Yeah. And so some of it was, you know, we were sort of working through it on set. Right. I mean, you certainly have...
I had a list.
A certain amount of that you're going to do, so...
But then, but then with having 2 cameras and Derek running off and doing stuff, and I was just... Because I was like, well, I think I want this, but I don't even know how to write this. Like, how do you write this on a you know, a shot list? The camera... I wasn't... You know, but I could show you in the space what I wanted it to do, so... Yeah, which is why I wear really comfortable shoes when I'm directing, because I'm constantly running around. Right. Yeah. Never sit down.
Yeah. And then, of course, you know, you trusted me enough to get in your brain enough to sort of translate that through the camera.
Great. So. Do it. Yeah. And I was really grateful, too, that I didn't have to act in it. So it was another opportunity to just focus on one job.
Yeah. So except for that very last scene.
Oh, then I had to come in and do that. That was fine. Yeah, that was totally fine. I can always be the frustrated mom. I can always do that. Be a frustrated mom? I'm there. Easy. So drunk, better. But yeah. So that I think my takeaway was definitely like, well, first of all, if you have an opportunity, like, you should take it. And so I'm glad that we did that. And if you've got a good feeling about it, and I guess I can only speak as a director, but if you have feelings about the script before you shoot, communicate that to your writer. And Kristen was really great about just going, great, change it. Let's change it. Let's shift it. Let's cut it. Let's, and then when the actors were cast, David said, wow, this guy is like insanely, this character is so abusive. This feels really, do we want to cut? Do we want to, I'm like, yeah, I hear you. So let's play with that. Let's soften some places and let's, if we need to. And so we have options.
Right.
But yeah, it's just communicating. And it's also like, and I hadn't worked with, so just to clarify, there were 2 Derek DPs, everybody listening. So Derek and Derek. So which Derek? The other Derek I had never worked with either. And he was kind of going off and doing his own thing. And at some point I was like, wait a second, I need to know what you're doing. So I just stopped and said, hey, I have to, like, if you're going to go shoot something, come tell me, let's work together. And he's just so used to running off and doing his own thing, which is great. Right. But I still wanted to be part of that. I wanted in on the what was going on. So of course, we just have to communicate that, because every time you're working with new people, you got to communicate how you work. So, and then it was great. Honestly, we had such a great time the following Sunday that we shot, because we'd all worked together. So we were comfortable and we had a rhythm. So I guess that'd be my takeaway, is that the first day can always be bumpy. Yeah.
Well, the other thing too is like, Derek's like such a powerhouse on set.
Yeah.
I mean, he can just like spin up and create magic and
totally
power through things that, holy shit, if he wasn't on this with us, we would never have gotten this.
And I'm still standing here just trying to talk to the actor and make sure we understand where the beats are. Right.
Yeah. Right. So but certainly, that's where I was also trying to sort of mediate a little bit and be like, okay, just let him get that shot and just watch the monitor.
Great.
And it's, keep it moving.
So I guess that's my takeaway, is that like I really learned that day to just, say what I needed, but also go again. But then like, you're an idiot as a director if you don't let people go do what they're good at. That's their job, and they're going to make the whole project better. So you need to allow them that moment space. That we had that. Because I kind of looked at you like, what's happening?
I remember that moment, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, here. So, and actually, that was basically just over this one shot that we ended up, I think it was actually an addition.
Yeah, it was a good shot.
He added.
Yeah.
And we ended up really needing that shot.
Absolutely.
So that one made it.
Right. Yeah, and on this last project too, same thing, after working with my DP on this last project several days, we had a language and we knew what we needed. So he was like, hey, I'm just going to go run and gun and go get this at this church. I'm like, great. And he's like, do you need to be there? I'm like, no. Like, because I already know what you do, and we've worked together, and so that was definitely a great takeaway. And also, I love telling stories about kids. I think it's really sweet. I love stories with dads and daughters. I keep getting drawn back into those stories. And so
there's a great BTS shot of you sitting with all the kids in uniform.
Yeah, they're just so cool. And, and kids' stories, especially, this is a story about a young boy that was treated poorly, but it's also a story about a girl trying to find her way in her sport. And so for me, that's anytime I can tell a young girl's story, I'm going to jump on it, because it doesn't get told enough, I don't think.
Yeah.
So. And
then how about we'll talk a little bit more about the editing process. Because, one of the things about this is that we just had to produce so much content, and it just was like impossible to log it all. So.
We did it. We had a scriptie we had a student scriptie. I didn't really know how to tell her how to do her job. She just did her best, but we didn't really have good notes. So you had to go through a lot of footage and organize it. And
I think we spent about 4 months, like almost every week, working on it.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
It's a lot. And it went from a 14-minute movie to a 9-minute movie. So, and I think it's better for that.
Yeah. And that's actually, in the editing, was where we decided to cut out
the second story.
Part of the second story was the game happening in the adjoining rink. And it just, the thing is it didn't actually add to the story.
No, it doesn't add.
And when you're working in short form, that's the thing, is if it doesn't add to the story, you just cut it.
And even in long form, if it doesn't add to the story, if it doesn't move character, who cares if it's a beautiful shot? It doesn't need to be there. And it's so brutal and it's so hard because you're like, but I love this shot. It's so cool. And you're like, nope, doesn't. And so that was hard. And I think, and it was good for us too. Here's another hot tip I'd say, is that like, edit it, get it to where you want it, that you feel comfortable, that you're ready to show it to some people who you trust, who are maybe also editors or directors, and, see what they say, take some notes, and then maybe put it away for a little bit, which is what we did. I think you and I both went like on vacations, or we went on, things happened and we kind of put it away and we came back to it. And then we looked at it again and we're like, I said, I don't like that. I mean, like, there's something wrong. Like, I couldn't, but it took me some time to be away from it to come back.
Right.
And then I even had that moment where I was like, oh, I don't know if I have the stamina or the wherewithal.
I remember that, yeah.
To fix it again. Because I had this other big project coming up and I was like, my brain was so and I was like, nope, let's just do it. Come on, we're just going to power through. And you started making some cuts. And I was like, okay, I think we're getting on something. And then we figured it out, but it's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle, yeah. And that's, from an editor's standpoint, because I also did the editing on this one. That's actually one of my secret weapons is building in that time to step away and get coverage from other people, friends, family, coworkers, whatever. And then just get a clean break. Yep. Don't think about it. Just don't look at it. Just get away from it and take a big deep breath and then come back and you'll see where you can improve. Yeah. Yeah. It's just because you get so close to every single frame. Yeah. And you
lose track.
Yeah. You can't be.
It's really at the rink too. Before we shot, he's like, well, I got to tell you, this was based on a personal story. And I was like, oh no, now I really can't fuck this up. Like I really need to get this right because this is his story, So anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is 3 movies, right? Every movie is 3 movies. It's the movie on the page. It's the movie you shoot, and it's the movie you end up with, and they are different.
They're all different,
and so
I had those conversations with Christian before we started. I said, "Have you ever taken a movie from script to screen?"
Yeah.
And I said, "You'll see, it'll be a lot different.
It's going to be different."
Yeah. I said, "You just have to trust the process." So.
Trust it. Yeah. Anyway, so that and just that it was super fun, and we had this awesome. Hopefully, people will.
Well, I have to tell you, for me, like one of the big successes for me on this movie is today we're screening at the Film Summit, which is fantastic, and everyone locally can come and see. Yeah. But and we also are going to be down in Albuquerque with this movie in a couple weeks.
Very excited.
And, we made this movie this year. Yeah. So we're just literally getting started.
And this is where we connected.
Yeah.
It's like So, it's like where you asked me to marry you. And now we're going back for our first anniversary. But now we have a movie in it because I didn't have a movie in it last year. So
we'll have to talk about the honeymoon period
later. We'll see.
Okay.
Festival run, but sorry.
But so sharing the story for me was really important, obviously. So one of the things I used to do when I was a little kid was I used to share stories with my cousins. We would get together. Especially around the holidays, and there would always be like a story time that Derek would have. Aww. And we would sit around and
Derek's
tell
story
them.
Hour.
It was like a thing, right? That I did.
Okay.
But then, things change and people move and, so eventually that stopped and I had really lost touch with a lot of my cousins for many years until recently. So this summer, I met up with all my cousins in northern Michigan, and we had our family retreat that we do there. And I got to share Seward with them.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like telling them a story like I did when I was younger.
But way cooler.
Way cooler. And they were like completely wowed by the movie.
Oh, good.
And it was like all of a sudden I felt like they saw who I had turned into.
Right.
You know?
Right.
From that little kid, telling made up stories to an adult telling made up stories. That's
the loop, right? We don't just create this just so we can just stare at it on a screen. We want to share it with people so that they can to see how it affects them and that's how you complete it. Mm-hmm. You don't want to rehearse a play and not perform it for anybody. I don't. Right. So that's great. I'm looking forward to sharing it with some family as well. So
so over the next year or so from today, I'm sure we'll have plenty of screenings, and
I hope so.
You never know. Short films end up in all kinds of fun places. So but I can't thank you enough for you were definitely more than perfect person to do this project.
Geez, that you can't see, but I'm blushing. I'm very happy. And the good news too is like when you work with somebody and it works, then you can move on to other projects, and we already have other projects in the works. So we definitely have formed a creative partnership, and we are looking forward to a very funny story that was also the winner of the pitch contest in Albuquerque. So that's coming up. We actually already are pretty far along in development, and we're looking at starting some funding and getting going on that before the year is up. Like getting some buzz. That's the thing too. I think about these festivals is great because you can I saw you do this. I really liked your film. What are you working on next? Well, I'm working on this, and how can I help with that? And that's part of that's hopefully one of the benefits of film festivals. Is that you connect with people. And
I mean, traditionally it was like, I'm going to meet the production company is going to buy my movie and distribute it all over the earth. But that does happen on occasion, but I think really, as filmmakers, we need each other.
Right.
I mean, that's a reality of how the business works. Mm-hmm. I work with, my whole business is based on working with other filmmakers.
Right.
Derek calls me, hey, I need somebody to run sound. We only have one person on set. Can you bring your mixer down?
Right.
Because I'm not a sound person, but I can do that.
Yeah.
So there's always ways to help each other.
Right.
Everyone has different skill sets.
Absolutely.
And you need a mountain of skill sets to do things in this business. So.
Yeah. And listen, and yes, for sure. Yeah. And don't try to do everything because you can't. Yeah. So, unless you're a stand-up comedian, then feel free. But if you actually want to make a movie, you have to let people do their job.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So thank you, Deb,
for this
great conversation. And I encourage you to share this podcast and sign up to my email list, where you'll also get a free guide on how to survive a day on a film set, which I made just for all of you.
Awesome. And Derek knows how. He's been doing it for a long time. So listen to Derek.
Well,
we need to make you a t-shirt. Listen to Derek. Why am I talking to my mic pack instead of my actual microphone? Listen to Derek. Okay. Sorry. Sorry.
So, all right. Well, thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
Okay. You did it. Once again, you made it to the end of the podcast. I'm so glad you're here. It's been really great having you listening to us, and I wanted to offer one thing to you. I would love to invite you to an upcoming screening of Seward, which we will be doing in Seattle, as well as another film that was shot in the same building for Vanishing Seattle. So we are going to have a wonderful screening event, and all you have to do is sign up to my email list, and you will get an invite. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll see you next week on the Director's Viewfinder.